Controller players have just got a massive improvement to their controls with the latest update, and absolutely no one is talking about it. This one change has made every single one of my weapons feel way more responsive literally instantly, and is something that should have been in the game for years but has only just made it in now. Whether you're a sniper, a shotgunner, an SMG user, a hand cannon user, it doesn't matter. This one change will elevate your aim and your movement. Deadzone settings are here for controller players natively within the game for both console and PC players, so you can adjust how responsive your controller analog sticks are, finally. Now, a lot of you are probably wondering, what are dead zones and why should I care? I know some of you just don't care about the ins and outs of settings, and if you just want to copy my settings as a controller player on a console, then skip ahead. But I do think it's important to understand what these settings mean so you can individualize them to your preference. Well, essentially a dead zone is an area where any input within that zone is not registered by the game. Only movements outside of the dead zone are registered. Now, typically Destiny has a 23% dead zone, which is a combination of both the axial and radial dead zones. Now, 23% is a common dead zone, but it is a larger dead zone than many other shooters out there. For reference, Overwatch uses 15%, Call of Duty uses 7%. Now, what this means is that smaller, more precise adjustments to aim can be more difficult with a larger dead zone and often feel less responsive. The axial dead zone is a square dead zone and typically restricts more diagonal movements, whilst the radial dead zone is a circular dead zone, and combining them both creates sort of like a rounded square. Now, as a sniper main, I've always found that adjusting in one axis, so either horizontally or vertically, has been manageable, but when you have to flick diagonally and combine two vectors, it's felt way less responsive. But now I can eliminate that completely. So here are my recommendations. Originally, the axial dead zone is set at 0.12 or 12%, whilst the radial dead zone is set at 0.13 or 13%, which when combined gives us that 23% dead zone. Now, what you want to do is you want your axial dead zone to be set to 0. So now there's no bias against diagonal movement specifically. Then set your radial dead zone to be as low as possible. The reason why I don't say 0 here is because most controllers have stick drift. Years of usage, heck, a lot of them straight out of the box, don't have a perfectly centered stick. And so if you set it to completely 0, it will pick up on that tiny off-center position and cause your reticle to drift. You can see here my controller has pretty bad stick drift, and so I actually have to set my radial dead zone to 0.06 to fully prevent any stick drift. If your controller is newer and or better than mine, which it probably is, then you should be able to achieve 0.02, 0.03 without experiencing any stick drift. And don't worry about buying that perfect controller. The improvement from 0.13 down to like 0.05, 0.06 is so much more than, say, the improvement from 0.05 to 0.02. Your first game, trust me, you're going to overcorrect your aim a little bit, but stick with it because your brain will very quickly adjust to these new controls. By the second game, I was already feeling how much more responsive the controls were. Those micro movements you have to make when using a slug shotgun to hit that headshot, or those flicks you make when sniping, just felt so much easier. And it felt way easier to track someone's head when using a primary weapon as well. I know there's a whole bunch of you out there that are controller mains or console mains, and if you're still following M&K mains for advice on YouTube, come on guys, what are you doing? Hit that subscribe button so you can get tips and tricks relevant to you specifically. I'm Mr. On It, and that's it for today. Peace out, guys.